Hello and welcome back to REV Endurance Sports. And as you notice from the title, this is a reaction video to a GCN video that was released today. And it was funny because, some of the people on there, the internet and YouTube, oh, did you run out of topics to cover? It was about, shifting basics. And honestly, I think this is something that just isn't covered very well, because it's assumed that everyone knows how to shift. And I made a comment down there that, hey, as a bike shop owner, I'm going to tell you that a lot of people have no clue how to shift. A lot of beginners, and especially if they've just purchased a bike or gotten a bike that is a triple chainring up front and 8 or 9 or whatever gears in the back. They're like, well, when do I do what for what? When do I use this and when do I use that? And what do I do in what's the front, what's the back, what move? They don't know. So that's not what we're going to cover today, but I just wanted to kind of respond to those people who are, negative about, oh, why are you doing a topic that's so simple? There are a lot of people that don't know how to shift. All right, well, what we're going to talk about today, though, is that in that video, the other thing that Connor said was that you have to pedal while shifting. And there's that subtle nuance is what I wish to talk to you about today. Yes, you have to pedal because that's how the chain will move from one chain ring to another, one cog in the back to another, right? But there are subtle nuances and subtle things that you learn that you only learn if someone has taught you it, or I don't know. I guess I just figured this out on my own. But what I'm saying is this. This is the crankset, and you're looking at it drive side, and this is obviously the front of the bike. When I go to shift either the front chain ring to the little or big, well, let's just cover it from big ring to little ring. I pedal down, and I just a momentary pause of pressure on the pedal. Just a momentary pause. And I make the shift, and by the time I'm coming back up, the shift has already happened, right? And lately with Jess, just to kind of help her along, I've been flicking my elbows, which is usually, hey, caution. The rider in the front is saying, hey, caution, to the rider behind him. So I pedal down, a very light pedal, very light pressure on the pedals, shift to the little ring, and then I keep going. The opposite is almost true when you're going in the other direction. So you want to momentary pause of your pedal stroke when you're going down to the little ring, but when you're going up to the big ring, you want to have pedaling momentum. You're not hammering. And by the way, this is really for mechanical drive systems. Electronic systems just push the chain one way, grab the chain this way. It doesn't matter. It's pretty much dummy proof. You can do whatever you want, and you can cross up your chain ring and your cassette in the back, and the bike just runs just fine, which is a good thing for inexperienced riders. Di2 and SRAM access is good for them. But I'm a mechanical guy. I don't want to ride that stuff. I rode it way back in 2009. I rode it again. I don't remember when, but I've had Di2. I just don't need it. I know how to shift. I don't drop chains. I just don't need it. All right. But why do you have to pedal when you're going from little ring to big ring? All right. So I think it's really important because I don't know that people even pay attention to this. You see these little pins? those grab the chain, right? You're going from the little ring to the big ring. It grabs that chain. Let's use this so it doesn't have as much noise of the crankset and all that stuff. So there is ramping here on the inboard side of the chainring. I'm trying to get the glare. There it is, right? So you see that ramp, and then you see that pin, right? So as that chainring is spinning, it's providing a nacelle right there for your chain and your pin. And it grabs your chain as you're pedaling along, right? If you're not pedaling, and I don't mean hard, I just mean you're just still pedaling, you're not pushing that front derailleur far enough, maybe with your left hand, and maybe without actually pedaling, you're not grabbing that chain with your chainring on these pins. So I know that this may seem elementary for so many of you who've been riding a very long time. But if you did learn something, make a comment down below. Anyway, this is also the reason why I stand very strongly on the stance that Shimano front derailleurs, Shimano chains, and Shimano chain rings, especially the big chain ring, even on the mechanical side, shift superior to anything else. We've known for ages that SRAM front derailleur shifts like crap. Especially SRAM Red, because it was a titanium cage, so most of the time I would put a Shimano Ultegra front derailleur on those, and then that would fix that shifting. Even when they went ETAP, then they went Access, the electronic stuff, that front derailleur still was never that good. I think in their last iteration, this is now 2025, that was released just recently, I think they finally fixed that front derailleur. It's a known issue. Everyone knows how the front derailleur for SRAM just isn't very good. But a Shimano front derailleur, and it doesn't matter what level, it shifts very, very well. So, all right, that's just the front. We'll talk a little bit about the back. So, in this case, this is a 52-36. So what does that mean? Well, let's start with the basics. That's 52 teeth and 36 for your inner chainring. Well, let's do some math real quick. 52 minus 36. Oh, that's 16 teeth difference. So when someone needs to make a shift, they need to decide, do I need a minor adjustment? You know, the hill, up, down, flat. Do I need a minor adjustment? Because if I just need a minor adjustment, then I use the rear, right? Because if I move from one cog to another, it's probably 2 teeth difference. Or when it's all the way down towards the smallest cogs, they're 1 tooth, 1 tooth, 1 tooth, 1 tooth. So if you just need to make a minor adjustment, shift in the back. You need to make a major adjustment. Well, guess what? This will, in this particular setup, also the 50-34, which is a very common drive crankset, 50, 34, 16 teeth again. 52, 36, 16 teeth. That change is quite dramatic. So what happens when folks that you're riding with, and they do this, they shift from the big ring to the little ring without what I call preloading in the back. They shift, it's 16 teeth, they go from grinding to whoa, and here you go, you're right behind them. You're not going to crash, but you notice that they slow down quite a bit because there's no more tension on the chain. So to prevent that from happening, the more difference between your big ring and your little ring, you need to preload in the back. So a standard gearing for a long time was a 53-39, and that gearing was, or like a 54-40, which is what the new Shimano cranksets are. It's only 14 teeth. So it's not that dramatic of a difference. So in the back, you may shift 1 one harder gear in the back, maybe two, just depending on the grade, and then go from the big ring to the little ring. So you have to preload in the back. There might be a better description for it, but that's what I call it. Just shift to a harder gear in the back and then shift to the little ring. And you pretty much have the same gear you just had. Okay, what about these? Because the 5236, 5034, or your gravel cranksets 4831, that's 17 teeth. That's even bigger than these road ones. So that's a huge difference between the big ring and the little ring. 16 teeth or 17 teeth. So you need to preload in the back 2, 3, sometimes 4 hard shifts in the back, right? So go from the big climbing cogs down to the little ones. 3, maybe 4, just depends on the severity of the grade. And then switch from big ring to little ring, right? Because you want pretty much the same cadence you had just a second ago, but you want the option to now keep going up the cassette to get easier gears because the hill might ramp up and get steeper. Now this is a mountain bike cassette, but it'll illustrate my point a lot more effective than a road cassette, because the road cassettes don't typically have a lot of difference in their teeth, especially in the middle. They're usually like one cog different, or one tooth different per cog. So what I'm saying is, if you're shifting from the big ring to the little ring, and that has 16 teeth difference up there, or 17 teeth difference if it's a gravel 2x, then you need to shift down the cassette at least 2 gears, possibly as much as 3. I don't know. Depends on your leg strength, depends on your cadence you're trying to achieve, depends on the severity of the hill, depends on the terrain, loose gravel, rock, sand, pavement, right? But then the opposite is true if you're going from little ring to big ring. And this I see all the time done incorrectly, right? They've been climbing the hill, they're in their little ring, and they're kind of up here on their cassette, probably really close to their climbing gear, and they're going up, going up, going up, going up, and they crest, and they're here, maybe 1-2 cogs from the top of the cassette, and they slam it into the big ring. And now their cadence goes from this to... And if that's happened to you, make a comment down below. So you need to do the opposite now, because you're going from your little ring that you were climbing in an easier gear, and you want to go to your big ring, right? So instead of shifting down the cassette, you want to shift up the cassette. So what does that mean if you're already on your easiest climbing gear? Well, that means you need to start going down the other hill. Right hand, shift the rear, shift the rear, shift the rear. And if the cadence is fast enough, yeah, you can put it in your big ring. But you may have to simultaneously, it happens very quickly, shift the rear to an easier gear and then put it in a big ring, and you've got pretty much the same cadence that you had just a second ago. This whole thing is about cadence. This whole thing is about not riding too hard of a gear at the wrong time and not losing the wheel in front of you. I hope that makes sense. If you have questions, I can make more videos about this topic. But I find that a lot of folks just miss the subtle nuances of shifting. And yes, the electronic drivetrains can cover up a lot of mistakes as far as, chains that are crossed or you didn't pedal hard enough or whatever. But I know a lot of my demographics still ride mechanical group sets. And I will continue to ride a mechanical group set until I just cannot find any more replacement parts for my bikes. So that's all for today. If you've got some questions, drop them down below. You got some comments, drop them down below. And keep in mind, just because you've been riding it for 40 years, I may have someone click onto this channel who has no clue and they're just a very beginning of green cyclists, and they want they're looking for this information, and no one else has it. Okay, thank you so much for tuning in. Please like and subscribe. We'll see you up the road.